This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, as always, our weekend show is a little bit different to the rest of the shows through the week because here we are nominating what stories we each thought were the biggest of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, and then our favourite story. It is highly, highly subjective, obviously, and because we are both very competitive people, we need to bring in an adjudicator. And that adjudicator is, of course, our Fear and Greed colleague, the upstanding citizen, Adam Lang. Good morning, Adam.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Adam. I don't think it's particularly subjective because Adam has a set of rules, a spreadsheet, in fact, that he uses every single week to ensure consistency.
Yes, rigid consistency.
So subjective Lang consistency, Adam Lang consistency, but at least it is consistent rather than subjective.
Oh no! But the thing is, this is the only spreadsheet that ends up kind of having kind of personal considerations taken into account. I don't know how he manages to do it, but the thing is, if you find something that appeals directly to Adam's kind of,
we game him.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the goal here, is to basically forget the biggest story, just pick the biggest story that Adam would care about, and then you're going to win.
Oh, totally.
I'm also mindful, of course, Sean, that you're not sounding too great today. I know it's been a very busy, big week and you sound a little bit under the weather. So I'm going to take advantage of that and encourage you to talk less. I'll talk more and I'm going to go for the kill.
Very generous, Michael. Very generous.
So biggest story. Shall I go first on account of you having a bit of a sore throat?
Please do.
Okay, wonderful. The biggest story this week. I think we will actually agree on this because it was objectively the biggest story. The first week of a new government. It has to be the biggest because it was such an intense week for the new Prime Minister. Anthony Albanese was sworn in on Monday, jumped straight on a plane to Tokyo for the Quad meeting with the US, India and Japan. Talk about a baptism of fire. On Saturday, he's meeting punters at suburban polling booths, and 72 hours later, he's chatting with the US president. And you got to say, it looks like he did a pretty good job of it. The banter with Biden was pretty impressive. New Treasurer Jim Chalmers was getting his head around the size of the economic challenge facing the government, the calls for an increase to the minimum wage. Penny Wong got back from the Quad, then headed straight off to Fiji as part of a bit of a South Pacific charm offensive to counter China. And speaking of China, there was even a message of congratulations and the potential for a thawing of the relationship between the two countries. I think that, like, you put all of those pieces together, and I don't mean to do what we refer to as an Aylmer and just bunch a whole heap of separate stories together into one, but I'm going to. Massive week. The counting of votes hasn't even finished yet, and this is how much has happened in the last 7 days.
Well, look, that is definitely the biggest general story. I can't argue with that. I suppose I have one story to compete with it, and at least in my case, it is actually a business story, which Adam does tend to prefer the business stories. It's basically the crisis around electricity prices. Many Australians are about to start paying much, much more for energy, with the regulator greenlighting a price hike from July 1. Energy prices in New South Wales will rise by more than 8%, more than 5% in Queensland. They'll be higher in South Australia as well. Small businesses face an increase in energy prices of up to 13%. Now, many businesses work on slim profit margins as it is. 13% could actually make them unprofitable. Higher wholesale prices, the war in Ukraine and soaring coal and gas prices have all forced the Australian energy regulator to lift the default price that allows energy retailers to charge more. Now, the regulator chair, Claire Savage, said retailers need to recover their costs or risk going out of business. That's what's happened in the UK. She said householders should shop around to get the best deal. We're now facing high petrol prices, higher fruit and veg, higher interest rates, now much, much higher electricity prices. In terms of a business story that's going to affect businesses, this one actually was the biggest story of the week.
Adam, what do you think?
I'm not going to say it's difficult because
as you often like to do. Yes.
It's my role. I'm going to give this one to Michael. The electricity price story is massive and ongoing. And like climate change and the reflective investments we're going to have to make and change in prices that'll come from that, it's going to happen for some time. But I think it's just such a spectacular turn from the election result, as Michael, you said, still being counted at the polls in terms of who's the final seats fall to. New government, international travel, the worldwide scene, Penny Wong hitting the planes as well. So I think it's a really spectacular story and quite all-encompassing, and it will have impact on business. So Giving this to Michael.
No arguments from me. No arguments.
Is it, thank you very much to both of you, but is it greedy of me to ask for a bonus point as well? Because last week,
Here we go.
I picked as the sleeper story of the week last week, electricity prices, and said this is going to become a very big story very soon. 7 days later, it's Sean Aylmer's biggest story of the week. I should get a retrospective bonus point for picking it as the sleeper story last week. What do you think, guys?
You won last week already. Drop it.
Michael, I'm almost tempted to dock you a point for hubris.
Oh, no, I like this. Now I'm interested.
So let's just say no bonus point and call it square.
Okay, well, I'll just give myself an honorary bonus point. Carry on. So it's 1-0. We are moving now on to the most remarkable story of the week. Sean, you go first in this one.
Okay, well, this one is quite an incredible story. One of the world's biggest trading companies, Glencore, has admitted to bribery and market manipulation. It'll pay $1.5 billion with a B, $1.5 billion US dollars to settle lawsuits in the US, UK, and Brazil. Glencore is a massive business. It's one of the biggest businesses in the world. It produces and trades a range of metals and minerals, copper, cobalt, zinc, nickel, iron ore. It's got a bunch of lawsuits still hanging over its head, though this decision during the week does get rid of many of them. Glencore paid more than $100 million US dollars in bribes to government officials in Brazil, in Nigeria, and the Congo, in Venezuela. It pled guilty to charges that range from bribery and corruption in South America and Africa to price manipulation in US fuel oil markets. It's just quite remarkable that one of the world's biggest companies can be so involved in bribery and corruption. I don't think, maybe the collapse of Enron, perhaps, but I'm not sure that such a large company has ever admitted to bribing so many countries over such a long period of time. I think this is the biggest bribery scandal ever. Michael.
That is a remarkable story. I would almost concede that, except for the fact that I've got this one. The Partygate scandal in the UK is just extraordinary from every angle. The reason we're talking about it this week is because we saw through the week senior civil servant Sue Gray release her report into the parties held on government premises during 2020 and 2021, gatherings that took place when the rest of the UK was in lockdown. Now, the details of this are pretty incredible, really. In one case, the personal secretary to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, invited more than 100 people to drinks in the garden at Number 10, attended by the Prime Minister himself, when the rest of the country was allowed only 2 people at a time. The secretary then said the next day in an email that we seem to have got away with it. Well, they didn't. They got away with it for a while, but then, of course, all the photos started to emerge and the rumours started, but the pictures of Boris Johnson at these parties are pretty damning. Plenty of other parties as well. There were people vomiting, people being rude to cleaners and security who objected. I love this part. Even the government's own ethics advisor brought a karaoke machine to one of the parties. Anyway, the report was very critical, but also acknowledged that there have been changes in management at Downing Street. So as for the Prime Minister, the question is really now about kind of what should he do. He basically thinks that it's all done now. He told Parliament that he was humbled, that he's learned a lesson, but that the public needs to move on. That's remarkable. Don't you think, Adam?
Both are remarkable and both are self-interest over ethics. And I think that's just incredible. Partygate in the UK, I can't believe it's still going. And that Boris Johnson said everyone should move along. It's stunning.
The karaoke machine. How good is that?
Very amusing. And tragic, I think, for the UK voting public. But the Glencore bribery scandal to me is astounding. So the scale of the fines, the exploitation in the countries that they were trading with to get commercial interest and win, the mercenary attitude of that, and now that they've been caught for it, I think that is a huge business story and remarkable. So, Sean, you get this one.
Yeah, fair enough.
I've got to say, though, thank you. I appreciate the point. I am a deserved winner. But purely for kind of Kardashian-esque aspects, Partygate is just fantastic. And the way Boris wanders around and says, well, we can move on from this now. We've had the civil servants report. Off we go.
Yep.
It is hilarious.
I think I will just keep coming back to forever the karaoke machine. The ethics advisor bringing a karaoke machine to one. Just that on its own just feels like a skit, doesn't it?
Imagine it's like a boombox in the 80s walking in onto a party on your shoulder.
Just amazing. Anyway, look, 1-1 heading into halftime. We'll be back in a moment with the sleeper story of the week. Sean, we're looking now for the sleeper story of the week. So this is maybe the story that's not getting the attention that it deserves, or that's going to become a bigger story further down the track, maybe even next week, as we saw happen with electricity prices from last week through to this week.
Let it go. Let it go.
I do find it very hard to let go of some things. I think you're probably learning this about me. Anyway, sleeper story of the week. Do you mind if I go first on this one?
Please do.
All right. The sleeper story for me this week is all about crypto. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of criticism really of digital currencies lately following the collapse of the stablecoin Terra USD. So much criticism, in fact, that a defense of crypto by one of the most powerful people in world finance might have actually been drowned out a little. Kristalina Georgieva, who is the head of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, but please, Adam, I know that you don't like acronyms, so you'll note that I spelt out International Monetary Fund. She said, I would beg you, and this is a quote, I would beg you not to pull out of the importance of this world. Basically, don't let what happened with Terra USD tarnish the whole digital money space. The value of the crypto market has been slashed by hundreds of billions of dollars in recent weeks. But Ms. Georgieva says there are varying levels of risk, of course. And the less there is backing a stable coin, for example, the more you should be prepared for it to blow up in your face. For example, Terra USD was backed by an algorithm, whereas other stable coins are tied more effectively to cash. She said digital currencies offer faster service, lower costs, but that regulators really need to put up guardrails and help educate investors. So people writing off crypto, and there has been a lot of people writing off crypto saying this is the end. It was a grand experiment, but it's all over now. Those people could be going off a little bit early, and that's why the defense of crypto this week is the sleeper story for me.
Sleeper story. Interesting category for this one. Interesting. Okay, I'll give you my 2 cents worth. There's a trend that's been going on for quite a while that this week bared its teeth. 2 of Australia's biggest companies, Qantas and Woolworths, huge consumer brands, bought upstart digital companies to help with their e-commerce operations. Big legacy companies know they need to go digital, and some of them do a pretty good job getting there, but many do not. And they need a fresh set of skills to truly take that leap. Now, Adam, I'm sure you saw that in radio. I certainly saw it in newspapers. Adam, you were one of the few radio people that understood that transition. I digress.
Sickening. Carry on.
That leap from analog to digital, and analog being a very generic term, is really challenging for a whole group of managers. And, I don't want to be ageist here, but people who haven't grown up in a digital world find that very difficult. This week, Qantas took a 51% stake in TripADeal. That's all about online package tours. The airline has the option to buy the remaining 49%. Woolworths bought 80% of MyDeal. That's an ASX-listed e-commerce platform. These 2 big deals this week demonstrate how big businesses realise they need to change and how they're reaching out to the digital community to become far more relevant in 2022 and beyond. Didn't get a lot of noise this week, but those 2 hundreds of millions of dollars purchases, really big news inside corporate Australia. That's why it's the sleeper story of the week.
What do you reckon, Adam?
Sean wins.
Brutal. You could at least soften it a little bit. Jeez.
Well, you 2 have complained about my softening approach.
I think I prefer it when you describe it as a tough one. It makes me feel a little bit better, but carry on.
Yes, but you both counselled me not to do that, except my role.
We're allowed to be inconsistent. Go on.
Okay. Sean wins on this one because, look, no one can say that the transition or disruption of industries is new, but from analog to digital is a constant theme, but these purchases, I think, are really significant in 2 ways. Yes, it's bringing skills that they clearly don't have, new cultural elements, DNA, exploring new markets. I love that. And it's great to see deals happening. And I'm really hopeful that can keep coming through this year, that business can keep regenerating like that. The IMF backing digital currencies and the I guess, the virtues of digital currencies to me is very interesting because they're the IMF. But
hang on, did you just say IMF?
I think so.
Hey, you used an acronym.
AL, why did you use IMF?
I felt like I was being wound up and that I had to rush. Anyway, International Monetary Fund backing the virtues of it feels like they're just putting up the white flag that cryptos have gone on for so long and there's so many people in it, despite the high risk and high gains some have had, that they can't let it all go at once and cause more widespread panic. Now, there is no doubt there is virtues in there. Blockchain, the digital currency values, there are good elements, but geez, there's still some risk in there. So I thought it was a very interesting call by the International Monetary Fund, but I'm going to give this one to Sean on the business impact this week.
I'm not here to question your integrity, Adam.
Go on.
However,
But is this just because Sean referred to you during his story as one of the most progressive thinkers in radio? That is it?
Oh,
is it,
I didn't realise I said that. No.
Oh, yes, what an accident. Didn't it just slipped out?
I mentioned that, did I?
All right, enough. That is 2-1 now to you, Sean. Would you like to go first then for the final story, the favourite story of the week?
Sure. I mean, once a year, I always put this as my favourite story. It's all about the richies. First, we had the fact this week that the top 50 richest people in the world have lost more than $500 billion US, at least on paper, this year. You know, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett and friends, they've lost about $563 billion US. That's according to Bloomberg Billionaires Index. It's about 800 billion Australian dollars, just in case you're interested. Then we got the Financial Review Rich List, which of course put Gina Rinehart, the iron ore mogul, as number 1. Andrew Forrest came in at number 2. Mike Cannon-Brookes at number 3, and so on. Clive Palmer was the one I found most interesting. He came in at number 7, worth $20 billion, which is $7 billion more than a year ago. Now, he spent $100 million on the election campaign in which the United Australia Party got zippo, nada, nothing. But given his wealth went up $7 billion, he's probably not too upset. Is it voyeurism? Absolutely, and proud of it. Michael?
Sean Voyeur Aylmer. I don't know whether that's a nickname you really want to adopt.
I don't want the kids to hear that one.
No, probably not, or many people actually, not just the kids. Anyway, look, that is a good story. My favourite story this week is probably no surprise because I love talking about auctions, particularly when there's a bit of competition at an auction. But this auction takes that to a whole new level. Up for grabs here was a controlling stake in a lithium mine in China. Bidding started at around the equivalent of $700,000. And this is where it gets a little bit crazy. It started at $700,000. 3,448 bids later, the lithium mine sold for around $420 million. 21 participants, nearly 1 million people watching online, and one very, very, very hot market for lithium. It's little wonder, really, though, because the surging demand, of course, for electric vehicles and batteries of all sort and the shift towards renewable energy. Lithium mining is the new gold rush. I will declare that here. Not really a sleeper story, but I'm going to say it anyway. Lithium mining is the new gold rush. This is a big story. It affects countries. It affects a whole lot of people. It is broad. I'm trying to appeal something here to Adam. Favorite story. Are you with me, Adam?
no, not at all. I'm going to give this one to you, Sean.
Oh, sorry. I really thought I had that one. Sorry.
I love the fact that you can't quite hide your disappointment.
Come on, let's hear the justification for this, Adam.
Look, in the rich lists, those at the top, even though some have gone backwards so much, some haven't, it's still remarkable to me how many of these rich listers have earned their money in this generation, not inherited, but absolutely generated it themselves. It's incredible. And I find that very, very inspiring. And that's why it's my favourite for the week. I think lithium mining too is spectacular. I mean, that's just like watching a lottery win. Just amazing. But still, rich listers get it for me.
I don't need your pity, Adam. But I got the silver medal today. I'm happy with silver.
You did. And can I honourable mention for the verbal flourish from Sean today, bared its teeth. It's been a while since I've heard that expression. Nice one.
Thanks.
Do I still get the bonus point that I awarded myself in the first story?
No, dangerously close to a demerit though.
Fine. 3-1. Well done, Sean.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you very much, Adam.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, of course, about our weekly podcast called Safe Word by Fear and Greed. The three of us have a bit of a lighter look at some of the business news around the place. It comes out every Thursday, so you can find that by searching for Safe Word by Fear and Greed wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.